Unlock the past.
Shape the future.
Dive deeper.
Discover more.
Welcome to Artifact
Season 2.
on Al-Ula FM Podcasts.
The sound of Arabia.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us His Excellency, Mr. Christophe Farnaud. And he's the ambassador of the EU to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and also to Oman and to Bahrain.
Absolutely.
Nice
Thanks so much for the invitation.
It is my honor and my pleasure to have you, Your Excellency. And we want to get right into the interview. And we want to know, Your Excellency, please tell us about yourself. And what is your role and what brought you to it?
Well, this question alone could take the full hour to answer that, but let's try to be simple. So I'm a career diplomat first. I've been representing the EU the way you described for a year now here. I'm very happy to be here. By training, I was a diplomat as well, but I was first a French diplomat, and I was twice a French ambassador before becoming an ambassador of the European Union, which in itself is a very, very interesting experience. And coming to Saudi Arabia was one of my goals over the last years, because basically I'm supposed to be an Arabist. I say I'm supposed to because I'm quite, I think, the more you know about this beautiful language, the more modest you are. But I spent years and years in the region, but the more I saw it, and especially over the last years, the more I've been thinking that this country now is really the place to be. Because this huge transformation called Vision 2030 corresponds to something really big in many ways. And it's about the economy, of course, but it's not just about the economy. We're going to talk about that. It's also about the society. It's about culture. And it's not just about this country, because what's happening here corresponds to a wider trend in the region, but also will have an impact on the whole region and beyond. And this is why I thought it would be good to spend a few years here among Saudi friends, because I must say that the Saudi people are very, very friendly, very welcoming. I really enjoy it. And so that's in a nutshell what I'm doing here. But so the next question would be, what is to be the ambassador of the European Union? Because normally you know the ambassador of the United States or the ambassador of France. Or
They're the ambassadors of one country, but you're the
Exactly.
ambassador of an entire set of countries.
Absolutely. I'm an ambassador. So just again to be quick, and I think it's good for people to know, so I'm representing the European Union as such, which means the institutions based in Brussels, the Commission, the Council, the European Parliament. We decided at the beginning of the 1950s to launch this European project. It has evolved, it has increased, and now it's a unique thing in a way, so quite strong. It represents about 450 million people, and we've decided to do things together. We've had enough differences, and we decided to go together. So that's what the European Union is for, and that's what the ambassadors of the European Union are for as well. So we still have representatives of countries, so ambassadors of the 27 member states, basically, but also an ambassador of the European Union who at the same time represent, again, the European institutions and is in charge of coordinating what the 27 member states do and speak in one voice on behalf of all of them when needed. So that's what I'm doing here. And as you can guess, it's quite exciting.
And so as a diplomat for a union, many countries with very diverse cultures. I mean, you represent from Bulgaria all the way to Germany, from Portugal to Poland. And so when you have such a wide constituency, how can you fairly represent all of their cultures as a diplomat who represents the European Union?
Well, two things. First, my colleagues do what they have to do as well, so I don't have to represent them on their behalf. So, which is one thing. And so, on that point, we work together. So I don't represent one abstract European culture. Mm-hmm. I'm in charge of making sure that precisely all the diversity of the French and German and Italian and Czech cultures, etc., are represented and work together. And it's a delight. And but I think that it corresponds to many, many different things. And so precisely, we do it through various projects that allow collectively and one by one to showcase one dimension or the other. So it's not just having 27 member states at the same time on everything. So I think it's a good way to do things together. And I must say that culture is a key element for us. Well, Europe has been known for years and if not centuries about cultural things, but it's not the only one. And right now, I was mentioning Vision 2030. In this country, the cultural dimension of the transformation is key. And it's such a pleasure, again, to be here on that, because when you're abroad, you hear about what's happening here. But people focus a lot on the change in the economy, for instance, which is a key thing. I agree, of course. And nothing could be possible without the economy. But there's more to it. And precisely, culture is one of the main assets on the one hand, but also goals, because a lot has to happen. And I've been struck since I arrived by the number of things happening in the cultural field and the taste of people for these things. So,
tell me about those tastes, Your Excellency. I mean, you're described as an Arabist, and what is appealing about this culture, do you think, to international audiences who might not have the same background in Arabism, such as yourself? What attracts the layperson, do you think, in your?
Well, there are many things. First, I think there's the classical Arab culture. I think the words are well known. When you're in Europe, everybody knows, in fact, that there has been, the golden age of Arab culture, the Islamic world with the golden age of Cairo, Baghdad, Andalusia, etc. But not so many people know more about it in detail. And so I think it's important to share and give opportunities for more exchanges. But there's also the contemporary Arabic culture, and I think that's very important as well. A lot is happening in many fields, and especially here in Saudi Arabia. In music, in painting, in writing. It's very dynamic, much more dynamic than what many people think. So it's important, again, to favor people-to-people exchanges. So we bring what we are doing now, and I hope people enjoy it. They seem to enjoy it anyway, but we also allow these exchanges. It corresponds to a strategy we have in Europe. We consider that this region is strategic. And so this goes through culture as well. You have to know people. You talk about globalization, but the more you meet people, the more you have to know them to avoid misunderstandings and to build things together. So that's what culture is about. And I think it's really great, because when you're here, of course, many people here have heard of pop music groups from Europe, from the States, of course, but from Europe as well. Some have heard of the more classical music composers, sometimes from novelists, etc. So it's good to exchange on it. And vice versa. Again, it's good that in Europe, people realize what's happening here. And all these concerts you have, all these exchanges, it's incredible. That's why basically we organize events and we support events as well.
But that's a long-lasting legacy, because Europe and the Arab world, especially this part of the Arab world, have been exchanging ideas and goods and products, and they've been exchanging facts for thousands of years. So
absolutely,
this is actually a continuation, and a lot of that actually happened through places like Al-Ula, where it used to be a crossroads of people meeting and greeting and exchanging their ideas and their products.
Absolutely, it was, and it went both ways. Once again, So on the one hand, you can think of the incense road, the spices road. You can think of the Roman Empire coming up to Al-Ula, basically, yes, and even further south,
and even an Arab ruler for the Roman Empire.
Absolutely, vice versa, and everybody knows about the extension of the first Islamic empire, yes, which was an Arab empire, basically, and so that went with very deep cultural exchanges. The caliphs wanted to do it, and in the same way in Europe there was some fascination for it. We could talk about philosophy, where part of the Greek philosophers were better known in Europe thanks to the Arab legacy, vice versa. So the poets traveled both ways, etc., etc. So it's a long history, and I think that, again, even sticking to the contemporary era, things have been happening in an incredible way. And of course, the current Saudi Arabia was not always so well known in Europe, but when you look at it, there's a lot happening. And I think that on this, by the way, you mentioned Al-Ula. For years, Al-Ula was not that well known. It was even not on so many maps, to be honest. I remember when I was a young diplomat, I was posted to countries around here in Egypt or Jordan. You knew about, of course, the pyramids, you know about Petra, but you didn't know so much about what had happened here. So it's really, really a major achievement that we can at last enjoy it.
Yes.
And it brings a message. It's a message precisely of a long legacy of diverse cultures. And I think that for the people of this country, it's great news.
I mean, it is great news. The state was able to literally put Al-Ula back on the map.
Absolutely.
Even though it had been well known thousands of years ago, but putting it way back into, putting it right back on the map again, making it interesting for visitors from all over the world is, as you said, a very amazing achievement. And I really like your comment about it's not just about economics between Europe and this part of the world, especially Saudi Arabia. And as we discussed, there's always been a cultural, scientific exchange between those two groups. And there's more to appreciate in life than just simple transactional economics.
No, and it reminds me, among the founding fathers of the European Union, one gentleman was known to have said that if he had to start again, he would start with culture. Because, of course, the European Union is well known to have been first a common market. But basically, I think it meant a lot. It's because a lot go through culture. And again, you cannot completely make a separation between culture, politics, and the economy. It's a thing that includes all of these fields. But clearly, the cultural field is key. And knowing that culture involves art, as we mentioned, but also education, training, it's a vision of the world, basically. So the more we share, the greater the chances that we get joint positive results.
When it comes to the European Union, Your Excellency, being that you are the top representative of that union in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Oman, what are the EU's goals culturally for the region?
Well, the goal relates to what I've just said. We are aware that it is a priority in the kingdom. And so if we want to be fully a partner of this country for the coming century and be partner for this transformation, we have to include culture. So that's how we make it one of our key targets, if I may say so.
And how do you target, Your Excellency? Sorry, give me some of this.
Exactly. So it includes many things. It goes through, if I may say, one-shot events, showcasing what we're doing and exchanging. So that's, for instance, what we do when we organize European Film Festival.
We covered that, by the way, Your Excellency. Yes.
And we were glad about it. Thank you so much. So you could see that it was quite successful. And we had 21 countries taking part in it. So it shows the diversity of our movie industry. But it's also a way to exchange with the Saudis. And that's why, for instance, when we have a film director coming who had an Oscar, he could have a masterclass here with the Saudi people. And that's also why we can have, each time there was a movie, there was discussions between the filmmakers or the film directors or the actors with the Saudi audience. We have what we call Europe Months in May, because as maybe you could remember, or maybe 9th of May is Europe Day, because that was the day where the European Union was founded, in a way, to make things simple. And so in months, we have a focus on cultural events. So it's not just about the movies. It's also, for instance, about the expertise in museum management. We had a seminar in Jeddah on that. Again, mixing European and Saudi expertise. We do things in many areas. We have a night of European languages, showcasing what we do in Europe, because nothing can be said but through words or through languages. So it's important to show that what it means, and we know vice versa the importance of the Arabic language. And we do what did I mention? We do a food festival that will be soon in the coming weeks, where in a very, very relaxed and cheerful way we showcase our cuisine, and again, exchanging with the Saudis. So it's a two-way thing. And the thing is that to allow people to exchange, to know each other, to do things together. And so you see, we want to go as wide as we want. And
because that field does encompass a lot of things, right? It encompasses
absolutely.
Art, and within art, you have contemporary art, you have fine art, you have antiques, and then you could go into food. And food, you have fine dining, you have fast food, you have food trucks, you have so much
It's incredible.
subcategories within every single one of those categories.
Absolutely. And to me, it's a real pleasure as well to discover how active the cultural scene here is. I went to Jack's a number of times already on various occasions. And each time it was a surprise, when it was either Noor Riyadh or just meeting with artists there. And seeing, by the way, how the Saudi authorities support these new developments, I think it's incredible. It's very good. And I mentioned Noor Riyadh. I could also attend the big launch event in Kaft. It's a lot of things, and sometimes people abroad do not realize how dynamic it is. So I don't just attend. I can also explain and promote. In a way, in culture, I'm not just the ambassador of the European culture here. I try to also be, to an extent, the ambassador of Saudi culture in Europe. We still have to explain at times, although more and more people know, by the way. So
yeah, global media does that.
But I think it's very positive. It's really very positive because it's new, and it's really really worth it.
And I really I find it fascinating that as a European diplomat, I think some of the stereotypes that we have of diplomats is that they are way more interested in the classical culture, and they're way more into scholarly culture. But I see that you're very excited about contemporary culture, especially in Saudi Arabia.
Well, yeah, well. For sure, and probably there is some personal element in it. I don't hide it, but I think it's also what we have to do, basically, because culture is a mix of all that. It's from the past, and ignoring it would be a big mistake. Although more so, it helps understanding better what's happening now. But it is happening now, and through what's happening now, you're building your future, not just for you, but for the younger generation. And the way artists show us the world now is the way we will perceive it in the coming years as well. So it's both very exciting, and at the same time a kind of a duty, but a nice duty. There's much more difficult things to do at times. No, I think it really makes sense, and it deserves special attention, because sometimes it's very easy to understand, sometimes it's more complex, and it's worth trying to see what it really means. You see, for instance, I was talking about Noor Riyadh. When you looked at it, it was really interesting because it was not just Saudi, it was international. And in a way, each artist had a different vision of the world. And so it was interesting to see what it could mean in a way to understand what the country is now. But I think you could say that about every art. And by the way, there's another dimension about culture, which is training and universities, because this is also culture.
Of course.
And again, a lot is going through it. The new generations go through them, so we have to understand what's happening, and if we can, help in a way as well.
Well, the European Union is very known for its attachment and its dedication to cultural preservation.
Absolutely.
And to see that there is a European appetite for Saudi contemporary culture, I think is a signaling that a lot of people don't really get to experience. They don't get to see the excitement and the passion that because Europe and Europe and North America have been exporting so much of their own contemporary culture. Mm-hmm. We often overlook that there might be a demand for Saudi contemporary culture in Europe and in North America. And so your keenness as a representative of the European Union to explore, Saudi contemporary culture, I think is exciting. And I think it's a very clear signal to people who are working in contemporary cultural industries that, you could wake up. You don't have to only serve your own domestic audience. There's an international demand for our contemporary cultural products or services that could be delivered here in Saudi Arabia.
And by the way, if you allow me on that, because I meet with artists, of course, but I also meet with people who own galleries, etc., because art has never been just
things on the wall.
Absolutely. You need a market, you need people involved in it, not the artist,
economy, yes.
Of course. And what was very interesting to me, quite recently I spoke with a number of gallery owners and people like that, and repeatedly I heard that for them, Europe was the market in a way, and the partner, because for them, in a way, Asia, Eastern Asia is a bit far in many ways. America, of course, is closer culturally, but the market for them is less accessible in a way. And for them, then, in a way, the natural partner is Europe. And so it's not me speaking now. I was glad to hear it, but it was what I heard. And of course, they included Britain, by the way, just to be clear, which is not the European Union, but also on this same map. And I think it's a very good sign. And we definitely have to work on it.
Yes.
In France, in Germany, in Spain, everywhere.
Well, I think a lot of people also like the credibility of being able to sell to Europe. If I was an artist from anywhere in the world, I think as an artist who is able to entice the tastes and the aesthetic demand that Europeans have, being that they are the globe's most appreciated art scene, I think it is a huge sign of approval that my art is somewhat valid, even though I would probably argue that art is valid no matter where in the world it comes from. But being able to sell to a market that is known for its appreciation for art, I think adds a lot to the artist's confidence to create more works of art and to continue in making and pursuing his passion. So we talked a little bit about, Your Excellency, we talked about you representing more than one country, more than one culture, but how do you make sure that as a representative of so many countries for a large union with multiple languages, multiple cultures, and even in some cases, multiple religions? I mean, we all assume that Europe is one big religion, one big culture, but how do you really represent all of even the countries that don't have a significant geography, even though they have a significant, of course, culture and language, but maybe their geography is not big, or maybe their economies are not big, and they're still members of the European Union? How do you make sure that you're able to also convey their needs in a diplomatic way?
Well, it is a clear goal, and we have to focus on it. So sometimes it's quite simple, sometimes it's less. Let me give you an example. As I told you earlier, what part of my job is, of course, to gather the group of these embassies and ambassadors. And I must say the atmosphere is excellent among EU member states and us. And we do things together, but then allowing each of them to show how specific the culture of his country or her country is. And for instance, I was mentioning the Night of Languages. Currently in the EU, we have 24 official languages, which is not that many when you think about it, because there are 27 member states.
I mean, when you think about Papua New Guinea, sorry, just to give people a sense, when you think of Papua New Guinea, a small island nation, not really that small, but a smaller island nation in the Pacific, has hundreds of languages.
Yes, but then on that, if you allow me, we have 24 official languages, but you have hundreds of regional languages. I think that sometimes the number that is given is about 600 or so. Wow. But I think you never know. It depends how you define it, because sometimes the actual language can vary from one village to another.
Yes.
But anyway, so many languages, and so when we promote them with a diversity. Precisely, the message we send is that clearly every culture, every language represents, again, a vision of the world. It represents, feelings, history, and traditions, and so deserves attention. And so that's why the Night of Languages is a good way to learn a few words of Czech, a few words of Hungarian, a few words, not just, Spanish, English, French, but then Greek and other languages. And I think it's fun. Please try talking to the audience. And second, in itself, it means a lot. Precisely, there is space for everyone. And so this is how we do it. We don't just promote one element of the culture, we promote the diversity. And diversity is a key word for Europe. It's not, again, when I say so, I don't want to talk just a diplomatic language, precisely. I mean it. I mean, we want to show that diversity is accepted. So it means a lot of efforts, by the way, because sometimes it doesn't go without saying, precisely. But we do it and we build it. So that's why at the EU Parliament, everybody knows and joke about the fact that translation is one of the key activities. And beyond what members of Parliament are doing, the translators and interpreters do a tremendous job. I mean, but it's worth it. It's worth it because the way you use your language is also the way you are. And so we don't want people to quit their identity to become European. That doesn't mean anything.
Yes,
yes, there are common traits among Europeans. We have the feeling of a common destiny in a way. Mm-hmm. But that goes with precisely having the possibility to remain oneself. The European culture has for a long time been considered as the prevailing one. You know, you could go from one.
Eurocentrism.
Yes, but this is quite a negative way to describe it.
Right.
But even if you take more in a positive way, you knew that wherever you would go, people would speak English or French. Just to sum it up in a it's exaggerated to say so, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
And now it's different. Now we know that the world of the 21st century is really much more diverse, multidimensional, and that other cultures probably are now having more weight. They have always been there, by the way. But sometimes, the international dimension was more limited. Whereas, and so I think that's what we have to take into account. And I say it in a good way, by the way. Throughout my career, I was posted to the Middle East, I was posted to Greece, I was posted to South Africa, so I could see very different environments, and I think this is for the better. These changes are for the better. I think in Saudi Arabia, it's a bit different, because precisely, it's on the rise, and they want to be more widely acknowledged. The reality is here, but the acknowledgement is less obvious in a way. I have no doubt it's happening now, and we have to take into account. But so the starting points are a bit different, although there's never a real starting point because its history has always been on the move. But I think that's something which in a way is useful, and I think that it's a good point. It's a good thing. It will take time, but it's really necessary, and the assets that this country has are enormous. So I think maybe that's something we have to work collectively on, but it's something which is happening now.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what the work that any diplomat does, right? Is discover where the gaps are and to...
Absolutely. I must admit that's also probably one of the key reasons why I decided to be a diplomat. Because you're supposed to allow peace, to allow common developments, etc. So in order to attain that, you have to understand what your interlocutor thinks and how he thinks, he or she thinks, by the way. And so you have to know the language and you have to adjust. You must make sure that you don't just deliver your message where you think it can be delivered. No, you have to think about who you're talking to first and then adjust your message and listen to the other's message as well. So yes, absolutely. But it's fascinating. I think it's, again, diversity and a challenge to an extent, because I said it talking about friends, but sometimes you're not talking to your friend, you're talking to somebody who is not your friend. So you need even more to understand what's going on. Otherwise, the misunderstanding could become tragic.
I mean, that is the first step to peace, is to understand.
Absolutely.
And no matter how much we go in the world and we say, oh, we finally made peace, or we've come to terms. You might have come to terms, but you haven't come to real lasting peace until you've understood each other. This exercise and this, I don't want to say diplomacy is an industry, but this sector that you and your colleagues belong to is one of the things that adds so much meaning to the lives of people. I mean, people don't really see maybe diplomats up close. They see diplomatic moments, like they see Winston Churchill and they see Charles de Gaulle and they see specific individuals within history. But they don't really realize how much is going on for those people to kind of rise up, essentially like volcanoes, right? Like the reason why is because there's so much pressure around them from all of these unexplored areas that make them kind of rise above their situations and make enormous breakthroughs in their careers. And so I think diplomacy is actually it's tied up so much in art, and it is tied up so much in culture and explaining, ways of life and the validity and the importance of uniqueness and language. And I mean, it's just such an exciting occupation to have in this time, in this era.
I totally agree, of course.
I don't mean to sound so envious, but I mean,
it's the difficulty is that you have to adjust all the time. But of course, it's very exciting. And so there is a technical part of it, when you have to negotiate a resolution somewhere, a joint declaration, as will be the case in the coming weeks for the first ever EU-GCC summit in Brussels, etc. But at the same time, you must do it bearing in mind all that you've just said. And so it's a major challenge. And this is why in spite of the image sometimes that diplomats don't do anything or just go to receptions. No, I can confirm to you, we have long days, including culture, etc., but precisely mixing more technical elements, political elements, and cultural dimension, which is not just a luxury, because it's really part of the solution, if there must be a solution.
Absolutely. When it comes to the cultural collaboration between the EU and Saudi Arabia, what do you think should be the major priorities? If we were to gather Europeans and we were to gather Saudis, and we were to say, we want you to collaborate culturally, but on what? What do you think would be the most impactful type of collaboration?
Well,
what would you like to see? And it doesn't have to be your official diplomatic stance. Or even personally, as somebody who lived and who understands this culture and this society, what do you think is interesting for those two cultures to collaborate on?
First of all, as I said, education, and at all levels. I think it's very key to have the younger generation understanding the others and making clear that we all win by exchanging more in the cultural field. And so I think it could start in primary schools, but also extends even to universities. And at university, of course, it means that we can share expertise. Because if you train an engineer in Germany, for instance, a young Saudi engineer trained in Germany, we always understand better what's going on in Europe than if he had been trained elsewhere. But also vice versa, by the way. I think that we should have more European students coming to Saudi Arabia. And this will be kind of a challenge, to be honest.
What do you think they would learn? What do you think they would take away from their experience in Saudi Arabia? From your experience?
I mean, talking about the students?
Yes.
Well,
if you're a wide-eyed student from anywhere in Europe, what do you think would be the most impactful thing that they would see if they came to Saudi Arabia?
I think that even just sharing the daily life in Saudi Arabia would make a huge difference. Because right now, believe me, many people in the public opinions in Europe do not really know what it is like living in Saudi Arabia on a daily basis. And I think it would be for the better, of course. Because the country is much more open than what many people think, to be totally honest. And I think it would make a real difference to be here. And but then it would apply to many, many things, because then they will discover, of course, the culinary qualities, but also, I don't know, the hospitality in general, a way of life. But a way of life means a lot, you see. It's really the way you live. I mean, so it's the heart of the matter in a way. So I think that's a key point. And then there would also be probably, of course, the acknowledgement of the top quality of some of the universities here. There is really big expertise from KAUST to the university in Dammam, etc. So I think that would make a difference as well. But again, in Europe, we have a program, which is called Erasmus. Mm-hmm. Erasmus is a program financed and designed to allow youth students from one country to go and study in another country. For instance, a Spanish student can go and study in Stockholm and vice versa. And over the years, the program has extended. And right now, for instance, we call it Erasmus Plus, but it allows European students to come Saudi and Saudi students to go to Europe, for instance, to learn for some time, generally less than a year, but it's a way to start something as well. And so I think it was very successful. It's millions of students over the years. And the more we can have them doing it, the better. But it corresponds really to the European project. So, the target being not just to allow to acquire some expertise in one field, but it's also precisely to be able to share the life of other students and precisely nationals. And it was a major achievement in Europe, and have no doubt that it can work very well in Saudi Arabia as well, for instance. So this is, I think, a major target for all of us. There's not enough students yet doing it, but although we are doing things like that, we have a more limited program allowing young diplomats from the GCC countries to go to Brussels and spend some time visiting the European Union institutions, spending some time at the Bruges College. And so the idea behind it is exactly the same, to allow more exchanges, because once you've really met with people and spent some time with them, you see things differently. And if anything needs more explanation or contact, it's there.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was His Excellency Mr. Christophe Farnaud, and he is the current EU ambassador to the countries of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Sultanate of Oman, and the Kingdom of Bahrain. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much for your invitation.
Thanks for tuning in to Artifact
Season 2.
on Al Ula FM Podcasts.
The sound of Arabia.